Fallen angels breaking rank, descending to this realm to take over and put humanity in a matrix. Clues being exposed, things they've tried to hide over time. Shattering the deception, the theory of everything. In this final part 3, we'll check out a few more clues. See you at the end. Ancient Egypt is a nexus point in the space-time continuum. A lot of things go back to ancient Egypt and what they inherited, including the following thread. How the Nephilim look like clowns, and how ancient Egypt is the origin of what we know as clowns today, as well as the continuation of secret society mystery schools and the origin of the ancient Jed school, Jed pillars, the cult of Osiris, contact with real species of spirits, and the connection between Enoch's fallen angel group, all the way through till today, with Hollywood channelers and even CERN. And how over time, all over the world in many cultures, there's this same generic Nephilim prison suit, clown outfit, and rituals. Sacred clown-type shamanic priesthood rituals to contact and worship these beings, along with dragons and other patterns you can see on my Theory of Everything playlist. But today we're going to dive into an interesting thread starting in the Book of Enoch and this thread about makeup. An interesting rabbit hole about how makeup can be used as technology. You're saying, what do you mean technology? Good question. Aside from one of the obvious uses of seduction, which you see carried into through today, it even goes deeper than that. There was this whole aspect of transformation and possession and things like sigils and tattoos with paint and other things that you would paint on your body like makeup that could kind of enhance or contact the spirit realm as a form of matching technology. One of the hidden uses of makeup. Seduction was just part of it, which also connects in through sex magic. You see this imitation pattern throughout history, and even the Hindu gods' faces, and many cultures the gods or faces depicted like this. You see in the Bible how Jezebel used makeup. And there's even modern theories about cosmetics, about how it's a form of mind control, how it goes into the brain and puts women in a cycle where they have to keep spending money on something that's actually destroying their skin, and they have to keep doing it over and over to feel like they need to keep up, and how the word glamour itself is tied into witchcraft. So this makeup, possession, clown connection all ties into what Azazel taught men. Video plug on my page about Azazel. Also, the modern origin of the clown goes back to Egypt. So does the concept of the Jed pillar and the modern Jedi and Star Wars concepts and the Force. This flows perfectly into the Star Wars demon thread. Aside from characters also with this same face appearance, you do some research and find how there's actual demon connections to these characters, such as Yoda and Darth Maul. Yoda was said to be based off of a demon, summoned by Freemasons supposedly. And check out what this African tribe leader, Credo Mutwa, has to say about Darth Maul and these beings.
And what surprises me is this. Some film producers, like the producers who make the film Star Wars, often show creatures in their films which actually exist, which even the most uneducated of Africans who knows this Chitauli can identify. For example, in the new Star Wars film, there is a creature who amazes me called Darth Maul. That is exactly what the Chitauli look like. I just wonder where these film producers get their information.
Interesting thread about the cult of Osiris and the Jed pillar, which looks kind of like the Jedi lightsaber handle. You'll notice how there was a Koreshian false messianic movement that was a cult. And then later a guy named David Koresh who also used this word Koresh. Doing some quick research, you'll find this word Koresh is based off of the word Cyrus, which I'm speculating ties into Osiris, both having to do with the sun in etymology. The Koreshians were even expecting Cyrus T, their leader, to resurrect, Osiris style. And speaking of the Force, many of the ancient Egyptians believed we lived in a Matrix-type simulation, a simulated interactive environment that you could manipulate and control. So the concept of the Force and all this comes from ancient Egyptian stuff, the net, which ties into netters, nature spirits, and other connections you'll see, including this whole concept of a net and how it ties in with the internet and web, and how both nets and webs are used to catch something. Wonder what they're trying to catch or trap. Hope it's not you. I also wonder if demons or supernatural things are related to things like foreign accent syndrome. Is there a spiritual phenomena element? Example, one lady born and raised in Texas her whole life in her 30s had jaw surgery and woke up with a perfect English accent like she's from England. And this has happened in many cases. and also weird things with heart transplants and personality changes, and other weird things that maybe science can't explain. What does this have to do with consciousness transfers, the same concepts that they wanted to mummify bodies for the pharaohs to then transfer their consciousness, which you even see things like cryo-encrypted Walt Disney having the same idea, and this whole resurrection of Osiris plan I'm going to re-bring up, which ties into CERN, future deep dive. Either way, with all this mystery and power, remember God has the ultimate power. He had the oldest man outrunning the fastest horses in the world. Plus Elijah's whole life was just straight up fascinating. Aside from outrunning a chariot, he was taken to heaven in one, frequently did miracles, resurrected the dead, frequently teleported and translated, just like Philip in the New Testament was one time, which is the thing. And apparently he was a warrior who the prophets of Baal got just completely slumped by, 850 of them. He prayed to make it rain and many other miracles. And I'm speculating that his power, obviously coming from God, but also coming from the 40-day fast that only mentioned him, Moses, and Jesus did, all three of them having the most supernatural power. Future deep dive on fasting. Speaking of Elijah outrunning the chariots, and that being the origin of this word, I'm going to wish you Godspeed. Did fallen angels start countries, and can they be traced down to their place of origin in cultures and civilizations? Also, are these the depictions of faces of a form of some of these fallen angels? Theory of everything, these fallen angels were dragon gods who started civilizations and taught men stuff that the book of Enoch and Genesis reference, that mingled with man, bred with them, and taught stuff, specific math and sciences. Let's dig in and see where the clues lead. I did a video on how the first emperor, the Yellow Emperor of China, was a dragon god who descended and taught men stuff. Same pattern in Japan and all over the world. The founder of Japan's royal family is the descendant of one of these dragon gods. The grandson of the first emperor, like a second or third generation Nephilim, which all had different names by the way as their percentage of godhood / fallen angel bloodline went down. Also, this dragon god was said to then live under the sea, just like so many other stories and legends, unlike Tucker Carlson talked about. Tons of USO bases on a side rabbit trail. Aside from India and Japan, many other countries follow this same pattern, and the pattern gets deeper. The Takshaka are known in India and many other cultures actually. In Sumer they have Ahura Mazda, and across the entire world in South America, Quetzalcoatl and Kukulkan, with the exact same depictions and even the same names for cultures and civilizations that never had contact with each other.
In Basque, which is unconnected to any other language, the word is dragoi. In India, it's dragon. In Swahili, dragoni. And in ancient Greek, drakon.
Many languages use exactly the same word for dragon, or something very similar at least. The Philistine god, who looks like a dragon, was called Dagon. In England, you've got dragon. In parts of Finland, you've got dragon. And in Eastern Europe, you've got Dracul. And then a bit further south, you've got Draco. They all have similar names. How can this be? What's behind all this? These people were not in touch with each other. So how does this come about?
The pattern gets deeper. Each of these cultures then set up a priest / shamanic class who build pyramid platform structures aligned to certain stars, who then take drugs basically, channel certain beings and talk to certain gods, and then who all demand a certain thing called sacrifice from the purest, littlest, and the virgin women. For some reason, all these cultures who talk to these beings end up wanting this one certain thing that's inside the human body, from the purest and littlest. These fallen angels who set up cultures all over the world also set up faux Garden of Eden-like genetic engineering centers that you've seen in Sumerian tablets, you've seen it in Egypt, you see it in India, and all over the world. Video plug I just did on it. The Amazon rainforest is said to be one of these intelligently cultivated gardens. Also, the name Nagas is referred to these serpent beings in many cultures. All these cultures follow the same pattern and also had advanced knowledge with no ways of knowing it, and they even said it was from...
Now what's interesting is all these great ancient cultures, including the Mayan, seem to have knowledge of math and science, which we can't explain how they got this information. When you ask them, they always tell you it came from the gods.
The same pattern of all over the world of the emperors or royal families being descendants of these beings, and even being given special technology from them, empowered artifacts, such as in Japan the imperial regalia, which was a special jewel, a special sword, and a special mirror, like a magic mirror. Also video plug on my page. Many elites and royal families and people that rule countries behind countries have some of these empowered objects and secret technologies, breakaway civilizations. This is all for entertainment, by the way. Also, Vimanas and Indian temples are like miniature Tower of Babel devices. As the pattern continues, you'll see cone heads, conical gold hats, or even people trying to copy that as time goes on by making their head cone-shaped. Also patterns of secret alchemy and some of the same secret symbols, which we'll get into in the future. After the pyramid, platform patterns with priest shamanic classes who do drugs, contact entities, who then want to be worshipped and sacrificed with women and children, who are guided into technology with genetic tree of life, genetic altering patterns. You'll also see the third eye symbol in all of these places all over the world as a universal symbol for being in contact with these entities. Who are these entities? Check out my last video. Quick third eye rabbit hole, which means enlightenment, as in light, illuminate, Illuminati, Lucifer, light bearer. The same light that 33rd degree Masons acknowledge is the true light, it's Lucifer. Also, you see this Nephilim clown archetype. Common themes including this clown appearance with the same kind of paint, the same kind of masks and tribal rituals, red noses, and a lot of times with the tongue sticking out as well, which we'll be coming back to with emojis and the devil tongue. Also, this 8-sided pyramid is the same as Crowley's 8-sided chaos star. What you think happens in the middle. This is definitely not to say you're bad if your culture has participated in any of these things. It's just examining patterns from the ancient world. All these clues in the mainstream still like, nah. The same pattern all over the world, seemingly separate religions, could possibly be all one. The Antichrist will be reconnecting all of these religions into one end-time religion. You already see the framework for it with the patterns I've shown you. Electric stimulation to the dome and ohm-like frequency and frequency displays and patterns are also part of this pattern. In light of all this subjugation and lead to sacrifice and taking of the innocent ones and them always needing stuff, and if you look at all the old gods and how people thought so poorly of the old gods because they didn't care about people and only wanted stuff, Jesus actually came to expose this matrix and expose the control of these beings, their real identity, and their control of matrix in this world through religions. Jesus was anti-religion and spoke against religions, even opposing religious leaders of his own time and culture. He spoke of a real God who offered real forgiveness that you wouldn't need to sacrifice anything for. In fact, he would pay the sacrifice. And anybody could be invited from any of these cultures. Any of these people that wanted out of the matrix could be taken out of the matrix. Jesus became our sacrifice, setting us free from religion so we could all connect with Source, the true God. And Paul in the New Testament talks about now how we are to be living sacrifices, loving God first with all our hearts and then our fellow man, putting them above ourselves. Which is why the Matrix hates Jesus, have been programmed to hate him, and all they do is bring up stuff about the church, who again, he opposed. The Matrix target smear campaign. Search the deepest levels of savage truth no matter what. Put on the They Live goggles, go down the rabbit hole, and see where it leads. Undeniable proof on the identity of Messiah coming up. In the meantime, unplug from the Matrix and all the layers of control. Just calling the name above all names. Yeshua. See you next time. There's a secret or hidden mystery layer encoded within the scriptures. It's called the Sod layer in Hebrew, which means the secret or hidden meaning. In fact, it's the fourth out of 4 possible meanings. The first being the literal meaning, the second being the hinted meaning or implied, the third being the sermon or applicable meaning, and the fourth is that secret Sod hidden mystery layer, that Holy Spirit revelation. The clue's hidden in plain sight. Check it out. So let's take this concept and see if we can find out who the Messiah is, aside from the Bible just saying it's Jesus. To really get to know somebody, you have to examine their heart, what's important to them, and what they're always pointing you towards. What patterns do they keep showing us? What pattern does Yahweh keep showing us? From the beginning, he's really drawing your attention to the cross. Just look at his name for starters, Yahweh, in the ancient Hebrew pictogram. Paleo-Hebrew, the meaning is behold, nail, behold, hand. Seems to be pretty clear. Also sticking with the Paleo-Hebrew, the first and the last, which would in Greek later be the Alpha and Omega, the Aleph and the Tav, the first and the last, that has its own Sod meaning. The Aleph is the bull, the leader, the sacrifice. The Tav is the cross. So who is the Aleph Tav? It's the leader who would be sacrificed on the cross. Move on to the next clue. Why are the instructions for the tabernacle to be laid out in the shape of a cross? Why is the Passover door with the lamb's blood, where the blood makes the shape of a cross? Especially with the representation of what the blood of the lamb is. People that believe in God agree that he made the stars and the stars tell a story, which is called the Maseroth in Hebrew. So why does the sun die on the cross for 3 days and then rise again? It dies on the southern cross of the sky. It gets to its lowest degree where it remains for 3 days and then it starts rising again. The sun, the bridegroom coming out of its chamber, represents the Messiah, the sun. Sticking with this cross pattern, the cross, wood being a tree, it was all lost on a tree in the Garden of Eden, and it was all gained back on a tree with the theology of the cross. Also with the pattern of fruit being on the tree, and then Jesus hanging on the tree like a piece of fruit to redeem, and then even becoming the first fruits of resurrection, which is what the New Testament calls him. This is also reflected in the Old Testament with Moses holding up the serpent on the cross. The bronze serpent on the tree in the wilderness where anyone looks at it would be healed, representing the judgment of the serpent in the tree, again a flashback to Genesis, and a foreshadowing to the future Messiah. And even super fast forward to the ending in Revelation, you see the trees again. Also, who's Isaiah's pierced Messiah, the one who was pierced for many, who basically paid for the transgressions of many by being pierced? And what about the prophet Daniel's timing, where he basically gave a timetable that laid out pretty much the exact time that Yeshua, Jesus, was here? Speaking of timing, we'll retouch on Mazzaroth and astrological ages, which is represented by the age of the Jews going to the age of the Christians, by the age of the ram going to the age of Pisces, Aries the ram going to Pisces the fish, symbol for Christianity. This also happened about 2,000 years ago, the changing of this age, when Jesus was here. This also coincides with the Dead Sea Essene scroll calendar of the arrival of the Messiah. Back to the cross and the timing of the cross, the veil was torn from top to bottom and also left the Jews with no way anymore to atone for their sins. It almost seems like the God of this changed the whole way he wanted to be approached. Also, there was an earthquake and supernatural darkening at the time of the crucifixion, and accounts of dead people getting up and walking around coming out of their graves, seen by over 500 eyewitnesses, which would easily pass in any modern court of law. Also, with the temple then being destroyed, with no place to worship or atone for sins or that system, seems like it was fulfilled, and a new one began that didn't get away with the old one, but fulfilled into a new one. This is also told in the Mazzaroth story, which you can find more on my page, and ties back in with the blood of the Lamb and the Passover door, full circle. This blood of the Lamb completing the bloodline mystery from Adam to Jesus, the first Adam to the second Adam, according to the scriptures. So the story is complete, where now we're all children of Yeshua, basically. The holy adopted royal bloodline redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. That's why in Revelation, Jesus says he will be our Father, and we enter and overcome because of his blood. Also, all the disciples were tortured and went to the grave and never recanted or renounced the Messiah. This is all historically documented. Also, John couldn't be killed, boiled in oil, and lots of other legends. Some people think he's still alive and could be coming back as one of the two witnesses. I'm not saying I believe that, but I have heard that theory. Future video plug, or at least tie-in, on the identity of the two witnesses. I'm not even going to add other research angles here, because remember, this is a sod study. But other angles you can find yourself, like the number of prophecies fulfilled by Jesus and how that's the equivalent basically to a monkey sitting at a typewriter and recreating the entire works of Shakespeare mathematically. Things like there's thousands of original dated manuscripts and more of those manuscripts than any other copies that we accept as valid. And other avenues of research like The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel, which they made a movie about, which was an investigative journalist set out to disprove it and ended up believing it. Lots of evidence in there. Could the resurrection of Christ be upheld in a modern court of law based on evidence? Could it? So again, in this Sod Mystery Hidden Level study, why does everything from the stars to one of the earliest languages, the ancient Hebrew pictogram, the identity of this God, all ancient texts, time itself, the meaning of the Aleph and Tav, aside from Yahweh's name, Isaiah's pierced Messiah with Daniel's timing, the constant showing of the cross in the Old Testament by Yahweh, the changing of the astrological ages at the time of Yeshua? You tell me, who's the identity of Messiah? All of these patterns and clues and attempt to hide all this information lead to one inevitable conclusion, which I kind of went into in this last Sod mystery layer exploration. It is the ultimate understanding and truth, and is the ultimate treasure chest and prize that I found in my seeking of truth in my journey in this life. The theory of everything is one word: Yeshua. Be blessed on your journey. See you next time on The Savage Truth.